between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Barker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
The second half of the season in the Agon by AOC Cayman Cup here on the VRRC is about to get underway. Welcome along everyone to the Hockenheim ring. It's a German double-header, the second part of a German double-header. We raced at the world-famous Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit a week ago, and now we travel across the country to the high-speed open spaces of Hockenheim ring. Andy McEwen and Jack Oliphant here with you to talk you through all of the action as we head into a pivotal moment in the championship, really. We're halfway through, Jack. We've got just the 6 points separating two teammates at the top of the championship table. Now only 6 races left to separate them. I could see this one going either way.
Yeah, hell of a circuit to start the second half as well, isn't it? Hockenheim, very technical, quite narrow in a certain sort of parts of the circuit, but a few really good overtaking opportunities in draft sections. So it can only set up what will be a fantastic night to racing, I imagine. Then obviously we're off to Spa for the penultimate round, and then Mugello to finish it all off. And as you mentioned, championship is super close. The qualifying has been even closer. We've got a few more drivers swapping ballasts here, there and everywhere. We'll keep you up to date with that. It all sets up a really exciting second half.
It certainly does. We've had a pretty exciting opening half to the season, in fairness. 6 races down, and we've had a total of 4 different drivers stepping onto the top step of the podium, but about 7 or 8 who have appeared into that top 3 at one point or another. This is how these are the top 3-point scorers, though, from a week ago, and really having had this sort of HFT racing dominance over the first 2 weeks at Road Atlanta and Red Bull Ring. Last week was when things just started to turn around. Nicky Taylor and Kyle Felvers, the championship leaders, not scoring a race between them. It was Jordan Brennan that came home with a win in race 1 and a 6th in race 2, which gave him the highest points haul of the night and moved him into 3rd place in the championship overall. Jack Smith also bounced back, having missed the second week at the Red Bull Ring. He had a really strong night. Didn't win a race, but had a 6th and a 2nd place finish, which was the 2nd highest point score, whilst Ethan Hill was actually the highest scoring HFT racing driver on the night, which has not been the case over the first couple of rounds. So Jack, a bit of a changing of the guard in a way a week ago at the Nürburgring. I'm interested to see whether that sort of continues tonight.
As I mentioned, there's a few little changes of ballast as well, but it's nice to see HFT still on the podium, but actually it's nice to see Ethan Hill's the one that's obviously sort of driver propping them up in terms of points scored. Hopefully that'll translate into a really frantic run to the end of the line of the season in terms of the championship. Speaking of the championship, you can see there the two HFT teammates of Ethan Hill are topping the table. Nicky Taylor ahead of Carl Felvers by 6 points, and Carl Felvers looks like he's got some penalty points in there as well, so he'll be hoping to claw back some tonight. Jordan Brennan with that really impressive week last week at the Nürburgring, he's clawed his way into the triple figures. There's an outside shot, you never know, to get in that top, to taking those top 2 places away, and we wouldn't put it past Jordan Brennan. He's an absolute machine on the sim. Ethan Hill in 4th place, rounding out the HFTs, with that Eric Axelsen as well, not quite achieving what he wanted to last time out, I imagine, slipping behind Jordan Brennan and Ethan Hill in the fight, but still in the top 5, everything to play for.
Yeah, certainly is. Jordan Brennan had a really good night, as we said. He outscored Nicky Taylor by 5 points a week ago. He needs to do a bit more than that, really, tonight to try and get himself properly into contention. But you can see that he very much is closing the gap. Further down the order, you can see the likes of Jack Smith, for example, who missed a round, as I said. So that kind of explains why one of veterans here on the VRRC is a little bit further down the order. Chris Shepherd there, a name that's worth noting, I think 15th place at the moment in the championship, but he's been rapid in practice so far this week at the Hockenheim ring, so he could well make a bit of a jump up the order. Now, what is it that they're all fighting for? Because, of course, it's not just about winning the championship here. If you can finish anywhere in the top 5 at the end of the season, which is just 3 weeks away now, then you will have a prize on its way to you. The champion receives an Agon 34-inch curved gaming display, just the thing you need to upgrade your sim racing setup a little bit more. Likewise, the Riggs SimRace 3 sim chassis, 2nd place in the championship. 3rd place driver receives 2 tickets to a round of the TCR UK championship this season. That is really coming along nicely. That's certainly an event to be enjoyed for our 3rd place driver. 4th place even gets the 4th place prize, easy for me to say, 2 hours of online driver coaching, whilst the Valeting bucket courtesy of PowerMax goes to both the 5th place driver in the championship, but also a Valeting kit going out to the driver of the round. And we've seen a few drivers contending for that driver of the round in each of the first 3 weeks, and it'll be interesting to see who gets that. We get a bit of power there, Jack. We get to decide who gets that Valeting kit at the end of the week.
Damn right we do, yeah, and it is a good bit of Valeting kit as well, to be fair. I think everybody who's got it has only said glowing things about it, so fingers crossed they're happy about it this time round as well. So, the Hockenheim ring, it's a difficult, tricky little circuit, but we have taken Dave Marshall, put him out in a car and sent him round it to see what he can do. Take a look.
So here we are at Hockenheim for round 4 of the Agon by AOC Cayman Cup powered by VRRC. Turn 1 down to 3rd gear, and then a really quick short shift back up to 4th for stability there. We clip a little bit of that inside curb. Some drivers might take a little bit more of that, some may try to avoid it, but try and get the best run we can down towards turn 2 here. Really difficult corner, really quite slidey on the way, just trying to control a bit of power on the way out to get the best run down and out of turn 4 as possible. This is obviously going to be your best overtaking opportunity. A long straight here all the way down into we're using the full track down towards turn 6, and down here slipstream on the brakes on the inside is going to definitely be one of your best opportunities during the race. We're going to get down to 2nd gear, just waiting for that corner to open, just gradually building a little bit of throttle in there on exit just to try and get the car to hook up the best it can. Through turn 7, a lovely corner, and Jack's going to try and get back over right on the side of the track here for turn 8. Third gear down to second a little bit later. You don't want to downshift too quickly there, otherwise it locks that back axle and puts the car sideways. Feeding the power in through third gear through turn 10 and heading down towards probably for me one of the most difficult corners, turn 11. You always think you can carry a little bit more speed in than you can. Be careful not to run wide on that green. It really grips you and holds your car from getting its full potential there. Second gear again, try to be steady on the power. The inside wheel will quite easily spin up there and put the car sideways. And then turn 15 and 16, last corner, trying to make this into just a long U and get good drive on the exit. And there is a lap of Hockenheim. Make sure you tune in on Wednesday night on VRRC's YouTube at 7:15. Make sure you give the video a like and subscribe.
The Hockenheim Grand Prix circuit then. Myself and Jack have just been having a very animated discussion about what we think of this track. I think Jack said it best. It does split opinions sometimes. It's I think the people that don't like it are the ones that still pine for the days of the old Hockenheim circuit that used to take you out on a high-speed tour of the woodlands nearby, whereas I think, I don't know, I've grown to like this layout. It certainly isn't... It doesn't look, it's not as visually appealing perhaps as the original circuit, but it as a driver it does present you with a certain challenge, and the racing, Jack, that gets produced around here is always really good. There are plenty of places to overtake and lots of nice wide open space to run side by side in.
Absolutely, and I think although it's not my favourite to drive, it might be one of my favoured to commentate on, because as you mentioned, the actual racing that is on offer here is always quite extreme. We're going into probably the most popular braking zone, overtaking zone, with Nathan Blank. Short, sharp braking zone after a really long straight and plenty of drafting opportunities as well. And the second half of the circuit tends to be a little bit more of a flow, doesn't it? You might end up following a few people, but if you see one or two drivers fly one up the inside or around the outside, that might slow them up, offer an opportunity for some drivers to catch up and all this, that and the other. And we even mentioned the F1, obviously, with the very exciting F1 a couple of years ago when Hamilton was going off at the final corner and Vettel was going off around the section that we're just coming up to now. So yeah, it's certainly a track that splits opinion, but everybody knows what it is, which I think is quite a compliment in itself.
Speaking of slipping off the track, there was one car running a bit wide there. Andy Carroll, I think, coming through that really quick right-hander into the stadium section. Riding on board here with Nathan Blank. Nathan Blank sits 6th in the championship, but he's had a couple of decent qualifying runs. Actually fastest at the Red Bull Ring a couple of weeks ago, so he'll be looking to try and unlock a little bit of that potential here tonight. Comes across the start-finish line now and goes from 13th to 2nd. That's a pretty decent effort, just about a 10th slower than Jordan Brennan, who was our pole sitter a week ago. We've had 3 different pole sitters actually across the first 3 weeks of racing, so I wonder if we'll get to number 4 here this week. When you consider that the likes of Nicky Taylor, for example, Ethan Hill, Eric Axel has had one, but there are a number of quick drivers that haven't yet started from pole position, at least in the first race of the night. This man, I think, could be the dark horse, couldn't he? Chris Shepherd was really rapid in practice. He's 6th fastest at the moment with a nice slipstream here from, I think that's Zanatachi ahead of him. He could be about to improve, Jack.
Yeah, he's had a couple of kilos knocked off his car, of course, with the sort of ballast changes going into the second half of the season. They're pretty much flexible round by round, aren't they? But the second half of the season, there's seen quite a little bit of change. Chris Shepherd is one of them, and you, with your tinfoil hat on just before we went live, sort of maybe suggested that Chris Shepherd maybe was almost sandbagging just a little bit, try and get that weight off on board. I personally think maybe he's just had a little bit more practice, and I'm probably sure you do as well now.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, we'll see whether or not that will come to fruition. It is not Paul Zanatachi that he's chasing. It is Laramie, so I was half right. And I was very much wrong in saying that Chris Shepherd was about to improve because he bails for the pit lane. So clearly getting past Paul Laramie held him up just a touch. Right, what's Jack Smith up to? 5th fastest at the moment for Jack, who in the 2 weeks that he has participated has yet to qualify inside the top 5. He was just on the fringes of it, but then Mick Sutton Yes, Mick Sutton went 4th fastest. I had to double check that. And Nathan Blank, actually. And Scott Bugner goes 2nd. Scott Bugner on an absolute flyer. And, well, I know it's early days, relatively speaking, in this qualifying session, but right now we've got a very jumbled order. Nicky Taylor on pole position is not necessarily front page news, but Bugner 2nd, Brennan 3rd, Axelson 4th, Sutton 5th, with Joel Laskin 6th, Nathan Blank down in 7th. Kyle Felvers, Jack, the man 2nd in the championship, way down in 8th place. That being said, he's less than half a second off pole.
Yeah, it's very, very tight, and that's exactly what we saw sort of at the Nürburgring, and there we go, Jack Smith goes and puts it in 3rd, and jumbles it all up yet again. What I quite like as well is the fact that the ballast seems to be working, this ballast system, so if anybody doesn't know, then on the left-hand side, you'll see all these multicoloured numbers in between their names and their sort of driver numbers. It says 3 for Nicky Taylor, Bugner is 0, 5 for Jack Smith, and so on and so on. If they have a 0 next to their name, that means they have 0 ballast on board. They don't have any handicap ballast. So Scott Bugner is running basically ballast free. If you're Nicky Taylor, you've got a 3 next to your name, you've got 30 kilograms of ballast on board. So you're sort of in the mid-pack, shall we say, in terms of your performances since you've joined VRRC. And if you're Jack Smith and you're Jordan Brennan, basically you're alien, you're weird, and you can just pull out crazy laps, crazy results from nowhere, and they've had to be stuck with 50 kilograms of ballast on board. So it's nice to see that it's working with Scott Bugner just ahead of those two drivers, and Eric Axelson just getting them ahead of Jack Smith and Jordan Brennan as well, with Nicky Taylor on pole. So nice to see a variety of weights go at the top end.
Yeah, and I think that's really working, because when you look at the championship standings, the 5 drivers at the top of the point at the moment, Nicky Taylor, Kyle Felvers, Jordan Brennan, Ethan Hill and Eric Axelson, they are the 5 drivers carrying the most weight, with one exception being Jack Smith, but we know he's missed around. So even with the ballast on board, those drivers are still getting to the top and they're still outscoring the rest. So I think it is working. You might get the odd sort of standout performance, as we're seeing from Scott Bugner here tonight, but generally speaking, the cream does seem to rise to the top, doesn't it? John Jones rises not quite to the top, but goes 14th and then is instantly demoted back to 15th again, because Andy Carroll comes through and gets ahead of him into 13th spot. Into the second half of the qualifying session now then. Many drivers like Chris Shepherd have been into the pit lane already to change tyres. They've got time just about to do that, get that second set of tyres up to temperature and get back out there on the circuit. Shepherd really wriggling around under braking. It's a really challenging corner, that hairpin. It looks like absolutely nothing on a circuit map, but spotting your braking point at that speed is really difficult to do, and if you're even just a fraction too late, you are not going to make the apex, and you'll just see your lap time delta going away from you. It's the most depressing thing, that for the tiniest mistake you can lose so much lap time.
It's such an important exit as well, isn't it, really? You have to get the car all nice and straight up before you plant the power. These Porsches are rear-end happy, and that's on turn-in and on exit. So you're absolutely right. They have to nail the entry and keep it really calm and relaxed through the corner until they can get on the exit of full power. So, yeah, you absolutely bang on. The car is not easy, even though these drivers make it look easy.
I can well believe that. Right, Chris Shepherd on a good lap here. He's got a whiff of a slipstream from somebody up the road. Oh, let's hope they don't all trip over each other. They have. Don't get in the way. Chris Shepherd on a really good lap here. Does not need this. He's got a car sideways in front. He hits the car. What a shame. That could have been a really good lap, that, for Chris Shepherd. It could even challenge for pole position. I think it will have done, because it was still a personal best. And only half a second off pole. He must have lost at least half a second through those last couple of corners. So, that's a shame. He's got time to improve again, but has he had the best of the tyres?
Well, the even more heartbreaking thing is yes, there is another lap. He may well even have the tyres for another lap, but the fact that it was screwed up on the final corner means the next lap is pretty much thrown away anyway. There we go. He's a second down, and whether that's because he's not pushing or because he was probably about 30 miles an hour down on the front straight, and that just ruins your lap time. The turn 1 is very quick. You need to carry so much momentum. He didn't have as much momentum. You're gonna be slower. So yeah, that is heartbreaking for Chris Shepherd, because it looked like he had practiced really hard at this circuit. He clearly clicked with the car, and it's still not going to quite be enough. But there's still 4.5 minutes. He may have had the best of the tyres. He can still get into the top 5 with a good run at the end.
No, definitely. It's worth pushing on. And actually, I would say it's worth abandoning this lap altogether and letting that HFT car through, get a nice little slipstream. I'm not sure which one it was. It wasn't Ethan Hill, because we could see him here with one of the Kinetic Motorsport powered by Liquimoly drivers behind. There's another HFT car on the grass getting well out of the way in front. So Ethan Hill clearly on a bit of a hot lap here. Turns his way through the hairpin of the stadium section into the final sequence of corners. I do enjoy this track, but I have to say, if there is one sector I don't enjoy, it's this final one. Eric Axelsen, meanwhile, to pole position out of absolutely nowhere. Axelsen to pole, Hill to the pit lane, and Nicky Taylor as well. So Eric Axelsen goes to the top, and his nearest challenger, Nicky Taylor, is not on the circuit to retaliate. He's pulled off, I think, to the side of the road somewhere.
I'm really impressed as well. To shout out for Joel Lask, that is Nicky Taylor, very much run out of fuel or something, I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, in fact that might have been the HFT car that we saw off the track earlier when Ethan Hill pulled past him, but doesn't really explain how he managed to do 3 more corners before stopping. But Eric Axelsen top of the timesheet, and Joel Lask into the top 5 in 4th place. That's as high as we've seen him ever, I think, at VRRC. So really impressive from Lask there. Hopefully he doesn't get a nosebleed at the beginning of the first race, and he can control that pace from there. But yeah, really impressive from Axelsen. Bugner, Lask, Smith just in the top 5. So you have to look a long way down before you start seeing some of the protagonists of this series. Yeah,
Felvus 10th, Ethan Hill, who won the second race a week ago, he's only 11th fastest at the moment. So, and where is Nicky Taylor second, isn't he? So Taylor could be set to gain out of all of this. Was it not Nicky who stopped on track last week in qualifying as well? And I think we worked out that was because he'd run out of fuel. So, yeah, I think he's really trying to carry as little fuel as possible through qualifying, save a bit of weight, I suppose. And the theory is that that might speed you up on your qualifying run. But you've got to be able to get out to the pit lane, which Nicky, as you can see, has not. He's stranded out on track. So Taylor going no further, which means that Axelsen's nearest rival for pole position is not going to challenge him. And actually, you would imagine, with the greatest of respect, that Scott Bugner might not be able to find another 0.2 of a second to beat Axelsen. So for Eric, it looks like he might be about to become the first double pole sitter of the season so far. He was on pole the Red Bull Ring, and now it looks as though he's going to go pole again here today. He's yet to qualify, Eric Axelsen, any lower than 4th all season long, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, Chris Shepherd's on a 3 minutes, and oh no, he's not on a 3 minutes lap. Sorry, he's going into 3rd place though, so he's pipped Scott Bugner. Now, I think, although that might be track limits, I'm not entirely sure. It looked like it would be. Chris Shepherd was going to be the only driver I was going to suggest that might actually push Eric Axelsen now. And some people might be watching this thinking, well, there is a button that you can pretty much just go back to the pits for Nicky Taylor, where he doesn't have to drive around. The game will let him go back to the pits. But here at VRRC, we like to try and keep things as realistic as possible. If you stop out on circuit because you ran out of fuel or something, we don't love people then transporting themselves back to the pit lane or anything like that. So it's why you always see them on a cool-down lap, even though on the sim you don't necessarily need to. But that's why Nicky Taylor's maybe not going back to the pits and getting back out there to try and beat Axelsen's lap. Now, we're having a look at Luke Weston, and I'm not sure who the driver is behind them, but Weston trying to crack into that top 10. Again, a really difficult category to crack into because you have a lot of really fast drivers who have really come to the floor in this second half of the season.
Yeah, Luke Weston, 2 5th-place finishes a week ago. That was a bit of a revelation, really. Now, it may be that the Nürburgring was just his track because he's back down in 14th at the moment again. Nothing to say that he can't improve in the races, of course, but a week ago, Luke qualified 7th and then raced his way to 5th in both races. So Luke has shown these flashes of potential. He's carrying 10 kilos now of handicap ballast, and that may be hampering him slightly, although we're seeing much heavier cars, of course, qualifying right at the top of the times. The checkered flag is about to come out, though, in 3 seconds' time, so this will be his final lap. Same for Andy Carroll behind him. Jordan Brennan, though, finds the time to improve to 4th place, and I think he just got across the start-finish line. The flag came out, so he jumps ahead of Scott Bugner. Can he challenge Chris Shepherd ahead of him?
Well, that is the all-important question. As you say, Chris Shepherd has taken the checkered flag, so he hasn't got a response now. Nicky Taylor's still on the outside of the circuit. Oh, that's not where you want to find a driver, just on the entry to the apex. And Luke Weston's time has been demolished now because of a driver that couldn't quite stop quick enough, put it that way. And that's really gutting for Luke Weston because, as you mentioned, he did really well last week. In fact, I think he got the driver of the round. And as we see, Jack Smith, the driver, has clearly moved from that apex. Jack Smith comes into the pits. Just for clarity, the Nicky Taylor, if he does go back to the pits, it actually counts as a retirement and he'll be DQ'd from the sessions, which obviously he doesn't want to do, considering he's in second place at the moment. So that is why. That is a VRRC rule. That's not anything to do with the sim. So that is why his car is stranded out there on the circuit and not moving. Paul Laramie, again, getting squirrely under turning, and that ruins his exit. And here is Eric Axelson, who is on pole position. Doesn't realistically need to finish this lap, but I'm sure he's pushing just in case Jordan Brennan pulls something out of the bag.
Indeed, and Axelson, I guess, getting a bit more seat time in. If you're in the rhythm, you don't really want to lose that rhythm, do you? If you're going quickly, then you really don't want to bail for the pit lane, I always think anyway, 3-4 minutes before the end of the session, because then you just sit around twiddling your thumbs, and when the race starts, it takes you a moment sometimes to get back into it. So yeah, I think that's definitely the strategy I would go for. Stay out there, do all the laps you can, stay in that rhythm. Brennan did have time for another lap, but decided not to complete it. So I reckon that is pretty much it then, with Eric Axelson getting his second pole position of the season, a 1:48.047. Nearly a tenth faster than Nicky Taylor, who only completed about 2/3 of the session in the end. He's second fastest, with Chris Shepherd third, Jordan Brennan fourth, Scott Bugner fifth, ahead of Joel Lask, Jack Smith, Mick Sutton, Nathan Blank, and Kyle Felvers. An entertaining qualifying session then. We'll hear from our pole sitter in a few minutes. Qualifying complete then in the Agon by AOC Cayman Cup here at the Hockenheim. The fourth night of racing out of 6. We're into the second half of the season, and we have our first double pole sitter. For the first time, we have the same driver qualifying on pole position that we had earlier on in the season, and that man is Eric Axelson. Eric, congratulations. You're becoming the qualifying king at the moment.
Yeah, the qualifying king with 2 out of 4. But,
hey, that's decent. That's decent.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I was a little surprised. I thought it would take a 47, and yeah, Chris looked super fast. I thought he would take the pole.
Yeah, Chris. Chris was on a lap that we think might have been good enough for pole position, but then he came across some traffic at the last corner. It actually looked like traffic was an issue for a few drivers out there. Did you have problems finding clear track?
No, not at all. I probably was blocking Brennan a bit. So I did a mistake and then I let him go. So I can't complain.
Well, you wouldn't think that it would be hard to find clear track around here, but it's funny. Racing drivers do always seem to find each other on track. You'll certainly have a bit of close company on track in the race then, starting from pole, of course, for the second time. But last time you started on pole, it didn't quite work out so well. So what are you going to try and do differently here today?
Yeah, I know. I threw it away last time at the Red Bull Ring. I need to try to stay calm and get a good start and head into the distance. That's my plan.
Yeah, keep it pointed the wrong way, the right way, I should say. Keep it pointed the right way. Is that hard to do on cold tyres? How tricky are these things on cold tyres?
I don't think they are that bad. It's when you go out on the grass, they are terrible. When you go back, that's the main issue, I think.
There we go. Some top tips from Eric Axelson. Don't spin and don't drive on the grass. These are the driving tips that you get here on the VRRC. Eric, congratulations on pole position. Best of luck for the race, mate.
Thank you.
Eric Axelsen then on the pole position. I really shouldn't tease drivers, Jack, because they're all far better than me, but mistakes can happen. We've seen that certainly, and I think this start, Jack, is going to be very, very lively indeed.
Yeah, I think I made an observation that was similar last week and said that it's faster if you drive on the tarmac. So he's not the only one out here spouting this wisdom.
I'm learning so much.
I know, exactly. It's an educational channel, this one is. No, a minute to go, and as you said, it's going to be a little bit tight for Eric. I think that turn 1 around Hockenheim is always a little bit dicey. You have to trust the drivers around you. But there is a big, long runoff zone, so you can leave a little bit of room on the inside and still have good momentum through. Obviously, the big bit that Axelsen will be thinking of right now is into that turn 2 and into that turn 3 braking zones. A lot of draft assistance. All the drivers really hunkered up. We could even see the likes of 4th place driver going for a lunge into first going into that turn 3. Turn 4. So I'm very excited for it. But I think if I was Axelsen and Taylor, I'd be a little bit nervous.
Most certainly. Here we go then. Grid is forming up now then ahead of the start of the 4th night of racing in the Agon by AOC Cayman Cup. It's Eric Axelsen on pole position for the 2nd time this season. Nicky Taylor alongside. Taylor, remember, the championship leader. 2nd in the championship, Kyle Felvis, is 6 points behind him, but starts 10th on the grid. Right, final preparations being made. Red lights coming on, ready to go for 20 minutes of racing around the Hockenheim circuit. Lights go out, away they go. Good start by Axelsen for pole position. He looks like he'll hold on to the advantage. Keep an eye on those pink HFT racing cars coming from the midfield. In fact, one of them under pressure for 2nd place already there. Chris Shepherd with a good start, trying to make good on his pace this week to try and challenge for a race victory. Fall into 3rd though for the time being. Joel Last there on the inside line. Looks like he might have lost a place, but he gets it straight back again under braking for turn number 2. Oh, it was a clean first corner. Bit of a hip and shoulder there through turn 2. Jack Smith gets elbowed out wide, and at the back, Paul Laramie is pointing the wrong way.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame, and we've got a driver off the circuit as well. I think that's Dalton Ayres. Hopefully he comes back and keeps everything calm, but probably the worst place on the circuit you could hope to go off because it's such a long way into the next braking zone. Speaking of which, I said that Axelsen will have to keep himself covered. I think he's done that. Bugner just obviously having a look at Joel Lask. Oh, and a big look from Mick Sutton as well, just behind, just to give Bugner something to think about. Bugner and Lask have obviously swapped from their starting positions, so Lask has gone forward 1 position. Chris Shepherd, Nicky Taylor, Eric Axelsen, and Jordan Brennan all trying to hunt down the 1st place man, but he's done exactly what he was hoping to in the interview, hasn't he? He's gotten ahead. He's hopefully going to get his head down now. 4.6 tenths that he's got, 0.46 tenths. The gap so far, and as we watch Carl Felvis trying to resurrect his bad qualifying, looks like he's getting a little bit shaky with Mick Sutton into the braking zone.
Yes, he looks like he'll make that move stick. So 7th place for Kyle, who apparently had a close encounter with his teammates in qualifying. He and Nicky Taylor trying to occupy the same bit of racetrack, and that didn't help Kyle's qualifying efforts. He's bouncing back from it well at the moment, though, as he comes through the stadium section and towards the end of the 1st lap of racing, a lap that will be led by Eric Axelsen then by just under half a second over Nicky Taylor in 2nd place. There they go. Game on for 3rd place, though. Chris Shepherd perhaps struggling on cold tyres here slightly. I reckon he'll have the race pace once he gets into it, but for the time being, Jordan Brennan, with all that experience, he's able to switch the car on a little bit earlier, and he's all over the back of the 3rd place man heading for turn 2.
Yeah, this could be interesting, and obviously Brennan will want to do this in the early stages of the race, if possible. And a big hit up ahead. Eric Axelsen gets nailed by Nicky Taylor, and Nicky Taylor slips back into 5th position as he rejoins the circuit, but Eric Axelsen's caught in carnage, unfortunately, as he tries to get back going outside the top 10. It's absolutely good because going into that corner, Andy, there was no opportunity from what we could see. Obviously, we were focused on the battle for 3rd a little bit closer, but there didn't seem much of an opportunity to go for a race lead move. So I imagine Nicky would probably hold his hands up there and maybe say it was a little bit of a mistake.
Well, it's cost him, that's for sure, because look, he's right back with Felvis now. In fact, 1st, 2nd and 3rd, 3rd in the championship. Jordan Brennan is up the road, isn't he? His teammate Dave Buki is off the road, down at the hairpin, but Jordan Brennan now could be the big winner. He's running in 2nd place, whilst the HFT teammates are languishing in the midfield. You've got Taylor in 5th, Felvis in 6th position, and then the 3rd of those HFT drivers, Ethan Hill, in 8th position. And we keep referring to HFT because they have been so strong this season. It's rare to see them this far down the order in race number 1, race 2 with a reverse grid maybe, but in race 1 you can normally rely on them to bag the points.
Yeah, exactly, and it makes the championship a little bit more interesting, doesn't it? Let's face it, obviously, at least there's 2 people right at the front of the championship, but the fact that Brennan's scoring well, Chris Shepherd is back at it, and obviously Scott Bugner and Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvers are right next to each other, means that this is sort of going to spice up the championship. And like you mentioned, this is almost what we see in race 2. It's what we come to expect from a reverse grid race, let alone the first race. So we don't like to see it. We obviously don't like the fact that Axelsson got turned around and this, that, and the other. And obviously there will be a steward's inquiry, so we won't give our opinions too strongly here. But what it does do is offer up a potentially exciting last 15, 16 minutes. So Brennan looks interested. Maybe he's playing this a little bit more tactically, Andy. I'll put that to you, because obviously if he's got the slipstream, he might know that if he gets past Shepherd, Shepherd will then have the slipstream. And really, you want the slipstream on the final lap, don't you?
And you've got to take into account who it is you're racing. You know, Chris Shepherd is going for his first win of the season. I would imagine maybe one of his, if not his very first race victory with the VRRC. So he's going to fight for this tooth and nail. Jordan Brennan cannot afford a collision here. He can't afford to go off the road. He has to capitalise on his championship rivals having a slightly less than average race here. So Brennan needs to think about this. You're right, he needs to think tactically about the slipstream, but he also needs to make sure that there isn't any contact. If he gets past Shepherd, he can expect Shepherd to retaliate straight away, so he's got to be cautious about this. There are Taylor and Felvers, 5th and 6th places now then, with Ethan Hill there in 8th place with Jack Smith between them, and Nicky Taylor leading the charge here. Then he's got a bit of a gap over Felvers, and he's right on the tail of Scott Bugner. But again, similar situation. Bugner is running best he's run all season, really. He ain't going to give this 4th place up without a fight.
No, exactly. And if Bugner takes his eyes away from his mirrors for a second, he sees Joel Lask jump up ahead of him. So again, another driver who's running the best they ran all season. Joel Lask, I think, is 8th in the championship. So none of these drivers will want to give up that opportunity at glory, obviously. I mean, Lask in the podium positions, a bit like Luke Weston last time out of the Nürburgring, a driver that I wouldn't go be as harsh as to say no right to be up there, because obviously in this race and Weston last week, they have every right to be up there because they qualified up there. But it's a set of drivers that might just be a little bit too desperate to get their hands on the trophy. So they'll have to be a bit smarter about this, as Ethan Hill sends it on Jack Smith. We don't see that very often, and that's potentially why, because Jack Smith is a wily old fox. He'll just get that position straight back. However, Hill will now have a really good slipstream, and he looks closer than when he was entering into that corner. So there's every opportunity here for Hill as he pulls out to the outside. You would argue the optimal racing line. The optimal racing line around a fast lap, but might not get the move done as they hit the braking zone. Smith makes the apex, gets it stopped, but leaves just a little bit too much room as he gets the rear end loose for Ethan Hill to do a fantastic cutback. Really good racing. This is what we love to see.
And I think that the ballast played its part there, because remember, Ethan Hill is 20 kilos lighter than Jack Smith. It doesn't stop Smith sending it right back up the inside, though. Terrific side-by-side racing. It's hemorrhaging them time, but it's very entertaining to watch. Looks like Hill might just be able to make the move stick now through the right-hander. Eases Smith wide. No, leaves him space. That was good. Gentlemanly driving there. On board with Ethan Hill. Somewhere to our left is Jack Smith. You can just see him in the mirrors. And now the number 6 car goes through. Smith has to watch his mirrors as well, because Weston is there. And Ethan Hill runs wide over the curbs. He dips a wheel into the gravel. And just as he'd got the move made, he hands it straight back again. They're still side by side.
I have to say, really good reactions there by Smith as Hill just touched the outside of the... sorry, it might have been the other way around, actually. I can't remember now, because they are literally just swapping and changing every single corner. But it looks like Smith just ahead. Are they both going to run wide again? No. So Smith ahead of Hill, and then Weston obviously been invited to have a little bit of a party with them as well. So really good racing. We want this to continue. This is the sort of thing we've come to the ring to see.
I mean, they've lost nearly 3 seconds to the car ahead, so the damp squib in me is telling me that they should pack this in, really, because they're losing time. But hey, it is very exciting to watch. Side by side they go again. Back up the inside goes Hill, but now the track goes left again, and that favours Jack Smith. The point I tried to make a lap ago is that Ethan Hill's car is 20 kilos lighter than Jack Smith. That should, in theory, give him a slight advantage on the brakes, meaning that he's got a good chance of outbraking Jack into the hairpin, and also should help his acceleration out of the corner should he need to execute a switchback. So really, Ethan should be able to get this done. He's got the inside line again into the hairpin, and this time he makes the apex, doesn't run out wide, doesn't make the mistake that Smith made down there a lap ago, and Ethan Hill does clear the number 15 car. However, we saw Jack come back at him into this next sequence of corners a lap ago. Is he going to do the same thing again? He looks to the inside line. Yep, we've been here before. Jack Smith to the inside, goes through, runs a little bit wide. Ethan Hill comes back at him, and once again, they go door to door into the next sequence of corners.
And all while this is happening, Microsoft Word's even got a bit excited, hasn't it, there? But I can understand why, to be honest, because this is basically, as I've mentioned quite a few times, exactly what we've come to see. Jack Smith, Ethan Hill there just hanging out too wide again. Smith takes advantage and Hill is too far back. Although he's still, again, trying to repeat exactly, this is, it's like I'm watching a replay here, Andy. Almost came off for him again, Hill, but Smith, not for the first time, now leads this train of cars.
Yeah, literally exactly the same thing happened 2 laps in a row there. Smith lost the place at the hairpin. Hill got it back into the next braking zone, ran wide. Smith got alongside him. Hill made the place stick, ran wide at the entry to the stadium section, and back through went Smith. Literally the same thing 2 laps in a row. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before, quite like that. Anyway, right, that has now backed this whole group up, hasn't it? So Weston's got the recovering Eric Axelsen on his tail. And Eric a bit fired up maybe, almost gets his braking point wrong there into turn number 2, and very nearly got into the back of the car ahead, which is Luke Weston. Weston defending the place, and once again tries to drag alongside him as they head down into the braking point at what is turn 5, the tightest corner on the track at the hairpin. Outside line for Weston, outside line for Axelsen, inside for Weston. And we've seen how sometimes the inside line here is not the place to be, because you run wide on the apex, you lose speed on the exit. Axelsen chose to stand his ground on the outside though, and that maybe is what allowed Weston to hold on to the place.
Yeah, and I think Axelsen, I wouldn't say driving angry, because we haven't seen that much of him to say that, but maybe not thinking that quite through well enough, because obviously he's maybe a little bit frustrated at what happened earlier on. What we do know is he's got fantastic pace, and to be honest, maybe the reverse grid is now the best opportunity for him to get that victory that, nobody could argue against, to put it that way. As Nathan Blank catapults himself over some curves on the outside. Ethan Hill, again, not really agreeing with that corner. He hasn't ran wide on the exit, but didn't quite make the apex either. So something about that corner disagrees with Hill, as Axelsen does look at the inside of Weston. But again, like I mentioned earlier, we saw it last week, Weston does know how to race, and now he's got to grips with the car. He seems very happy in these top 10 battles. So I'm excited to see how Weston gets on against the pole sitter.
Yeah, most definitely. Luke Weston's feeling the heat here, but in fairness, Axelsen hasn't just driven past him, has he? So the Motus 1 car hanging on to the place for the time being. We're not missing anything at the front, by the way. Still Chris Shepherd leading by now, actually, 6.5 tenths over Jordan Brennan. There they are. Now, this could be Brennan playing it safe, as we've said, just being the cannier of the drivers, saving his tyres perhaps for an attack late in the race, knowing that even if he gets through, he's going to struggle to get away. It could be the opposite, though. It could be that Brennan is struggling with tyres because he's carrying all that extra weight, 40 kilos more than Chris Shepherd is carrying in this race. We'll see how that pans out into the final third of the race then. Down into the braking zone comes the fight for third place, meanwhile, which also is still in the same order. Joel Lask ahead of Scott Bugner, ahead of the HFT pairing of Nicky Taylor and Kyle Felvers. So drivers are finding it difficult, I think, as Eric Axelsen preempts what I was about to say and actually makes a really good overtake. I was about to say drivers are finding it hard to make clean overtakes here today, aren't they? Because you get the inside line into one corner and that doesn't always translate into the inside of the next corner. But Axelsen does get ahead of Weston and moves into 9th place.
Yeah, there's something quite satisfying about that, though, isn't there? Obviously, you've got to have a bit of a challenge to make it worthwhile, and that's exactly what we're seeing. And at the moment, for me, Joel Lask and Scott Bugner are 2 drivers that have put their names forward for driver of the round to get themselves a lovely Power Max Valeting kit, to be honest, because they are running really strong, holding up 2 championship leaders. Well, I say holding up, they're not holding them up necessarily, are they? They're staying in front, shall we say, staving off pressure from 2 championship leaders, Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvers, and 2 drivers that have been dominant in this series, with their team HFT as well. So I'm very impressed with those 2, and like I mentioned, even further back, the fight for the top 10, which is what we're seeing right now, is also very entertaining in itself. So plenty of drivers here, again, putting their name forward for that driver of the round.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I mean, Chris Shepherd's leading the race, and that would be by far his best result of the season. Big mistake there. That was Ethan Hill, I think, running wide. That might have opened the door for Eric Axelsen, actually, as they went towards turn 2. They're certainly together. Yes, side by side. Hill got to the inside to defend, but Axelsen is very late on the brakes. That's a brilliant move from Axelsen. Went round the outside, carried the momentum, and knew that he'd have the inside line for turn 3. That was brilliant, brilliant racecraft. Now can he get away, because the slipstream will maybe bring them all back to him as they head to the hairpin. And at the hairpin, we're going to have a challenge for 4th place. Taylor to the inside of Scott Buchner. As soon as I said that they were finding it hard to overtake, suddenly we've got overtaking springing up left, right and centre. Taylor gets it wrong, though, and his teammate Kyle Felvers cut him a break there. He could easily have pounced on that.
Yeah, normally they prove the commentators wrong, but actually Nicky Taylor just proved you right there. It is difficult to overtake and to make it stick. Axelsen, though, really trying hard. In fact, he had to get a little bit squirrely with the tap of the rear end from Ethan Hill. Axelsen is trying hard to make it stick, and Weston's very interested in this as well. Oh, Hill. Oh, I'm not sure what happened there, or whether it was just a snap of oversteer himself. I was going to say maybe there was a bit of contact, because he did look very aggressive onto the apex there. Maybe there was a sausage curb. It upset the car in some way. Anyway, he got a little bit too heavy on the power pedal and ended up turning himself half the way round. Looks like Nathan Blank's interested in overtaking him, as Luke Weston has already gotten himself through.
Is the power pedal the new high-tech term for an accelerator,
Yes.
perhaps?
Yes, I'd forgotten what it was called. Again, education.
A nicer person would have let you get away with that, Jack. Right, into the last 2 corners they go. Ethan Hill, yeah, struggling there. I've done that exact same thing on that sausage curb, though, in a rear-wheel drive sports car. It's so easy to do. You hit that sausage curb whilst you're on the power, and it will spin the car right around. So Ethan Hill, really not been a great race this for HFT, has it? I know they've got 2 cars inside the top half dozen, but they're at the back of the top half dozen, and their 3rd car in strife in the midfield as well. So something about the Hockenheim circuit not agreeing with those pink and black cars, and it's playing beautifully into the hands of Jordan Brennan, who, I notice, is closer now to Chris Shepherd than he's been at any point in the race. Here comes the challenge for the race lead. Chris Shepherd knows it. He goes defensive into the hairpin, Brennan to the outside line. He's not trying to make the move on the way in. He's focusing on that good exit. He tees it up perfectly onto the loud pedal quicker than Chris Shepherd, and manages to get a slight overlap heading towards turn number 6. No, can't quite get there. The lighter car of Shepherd accelerates more quickly despite having the worse exit.
Yeah, he has to get up pretty early in the morning to try and outfox Jordan Brennan, but I think Chris Shepherd just about managed it there. A little bit aided by his lighter car, but he got a really clean exit. Really good on the power. Obviously got to full throttle a bit quicker than Jordan Brennan, and that's why he kept ahead. But he knows now that for the next 4 minutes, he is in for a real race. He maybe had 10 minutes where he could slightly relax and Brennan wasn't really pushing. But now, all of a sudden, he's there, and he's one of the most successful drivers we've had at VRRC, and he's showing why. He's just piling on the pressure. He's not necessarily making ambitious moves left, right, and centre. He's waiting for Chris Shepherd to make the mistake himself. Chris, he came into VRRC as a very quick driver. A couple of the championships we've ran haven't quite agreed with him in terms of car, but it looks like he's starting to click with it. He was on for a potential pole position here tonight. He was very quick in practice. Is he going to get that maiden victory here at the Agon by AOC Cayman Cup? We'll have to wait and see for the next 3.5 minutes, but Brennan looks like he wants to take it away.
It is a fascinating battle, this, isn't it? Because both of these drivers need a win. Chris Shepherd to get his first win, Jordan Brennan to try and the championship challenge. Oh, a very odd line there taken by Shepherd. He's immediately trying to break the toe. Actually, you could see from on board with Jordan Brennan, that really worked, because Brennan, as he came off the corner through turn 3, didn't have quite that acceleration anyway with the extra weight, and then with the slipstream being broken, it means that he's not close enough to have a go onto the brakes. They both break at about the same point. Brennan closing in, and actually, despite the weight, gets a much better apex, and there's a slide on the tail there for Chris Shepherd. They're going to have time for another lap or maybe 2 at the end of this one, aren't they? Possibly just 1. So Brennan running out of time. He's definitely the quicker of the 2, but he can't quite find a way through for now. Now, what about for 3rd place, though? Scott Buchner up the inside of Joel Lask here. They're trading position for 3rd place, and they've got Kyle Felvers and Nicky Taylor waiting in the wings to pounce if this goes wrong.
Yeah, Joel Lask not quite carrying the speed through to force Buchner off the scent just yet, but he did really well, to be fair, as Joel Lask still leads the way, and in through comes Kyle Felvers. I'm pretty sure Joel Lask didn't want to make it that easy for Felvers, because he'd rather have Buchner behind them than Kyle, but he now has the championship 2nd place man hunting him down for the next lap or so. We'll see how many we get in there. But Bugner in the HFT sandwich at the moment will be hoping to at least take advantage of maybe Felvers launching a move on Lask.
Yeah, good opportunistic driving that from Carl Felvers. He saw the opportunity present itself. He was setting himself up for that when those two got side by side in front. And crucially for him, Nicky Taylor did not come through with him. Remember that these two may be teammates, Felvers and Taylor, but they are fighting for a championship. And it's Taylor that has the 6-point advantage right now. On to what should be the final lap of the race then. And now it's down to Taylor to try and at least reduce the damage here being done by his teammate. That being said, actually, Bugner, I don't think has quite given up his hopes of finishing 4th. He's asking all the right questions now of Felvers as they head into the braking zone at turn 2. And Kyle isn't yet able to latch on to Joel Lask, although Lask ran wide through turn 2. This is going to be a real slipstream train down towards the hairpin. They're all going to arrive there pretty much as one.
I was going to say, I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe 2, maybe 3 wide into this braking zone. I don't think we're going to go 3. I think Lask has gotten away with it slightly, but I don't think Felvers has. As Bugner looks up to the inside, maybe just a little bit of pressure, maybe just moving in the mirrors for Felvers to maybe make a mistake. But Lask is the one that's made a mistake. He goes wide, he gets squirrely, and unlike Chris Shepherd, he hasn't got a clean exit. I think he's just about a car width ahead. Sorry, car length ahead, so Felvers will have to come again. But as he jumps over the inside curb, he's trying to access every little bit of speed and advantage he can. And here comes Bugner. After Felvers was forced wide by Joel Lask, Bugner had a little sniff, but nothing more just yet.
We're seeing time and again, though, aren't there, that you can make a lunge on the way into the corner, but you just can't get off the corner on that tight line. It happened again there to Scott Bugner, who now goes from attack to defence as they're side by side in front of him. Felvers alongside Lask, but he backed out of it, I think, knowing he'd be on the wrong side of the road into the last corner. Yes, I saw that as well. Let's gloss over that. Chris Shepherd is still leading the race. I'm not sure if he's going to see the checkered flag this time or not. It's going to be awfully, awfully tight. 5 seconds left on the clock. Meanwhile, Lask hanging on to 3rd. Is it a checkered flag? Is it the start of the last lap? He crosses the line as the clock hits 0, but it's not a checkered flag. So he just got through and has to do another lap. If he'd have backed off even for a fraction of a second there, he might have got away with it. But as it is, he has to do one more lap, and it means, more importantly, that these 4 have another lap to sort out 3rd place.
I think Chris Shepherd is officially off Joel Lask's Christmas list, because all he need to do was give up half a second. And there's a big move for Nicky Taylor. Don't take out your teammate. No, he's just slotted in. He's got it stopped this time round. And Bugner gets too happy on the power pedal and ends up spinning it round, unfortunately. And hopefully he can rejoin safely as Ethan Hill gets past Luke Weston down for the battle to be in the top 10. So now it is just a straight fight for 4th place on the final lap of the race, going into one of the most popular braking zones in this circuit. Carl Felvers on the outside of Joel Lask. Can Lask take that maiden podium position? Again, doesn't quite stop it on the apex. Felvers is a better run this time out the 4th corner. This could be Felvers' podium position back into his grasp if Lask can't quite run it around the outside. But I tell you what, he's done brilliantly well here, Andy.
Yes, he has. He's got the inside into the next corner. Bit of a hip check there to Kyle Felvers as he defends the position. And he hangs on for now. Lots of weird stuff happening here because Jordan Brennan's dropped about 2 seconds to Chris Shepherd as well. I wonder if Brennan thought the checkered flag had come out and then realised that actually he had to get back on that power pedal again to stick with him for another lap. Into the stadium section we go. And Joel Lask is all over the place.
Oh!
Contact! Off goes Lask. Off goes Felvers, and Nicky Taylor rubs his hands with glee. He is handed 3rd place. Watches his biggest championship opponent slide into the barriers, and that is going to have championship ramifications for sure. Chris Shepherd, though, comes out of the final corner and takes his first victory in the Agon by AOC Cayman Cup here on the VRRC. 2nd place for Jordan Brennan, and Nicky Taylor grabs victory from the jaws of defeat and takes 3rd place, only 1 position behind Brennan and several ahead of Felvers. Jack Smith 4th, Lask in 5th. Felvers comes home a disgusted 6th place ahead of Axelson, Ethan Hill, Scott Bugner and Luke Weston. What a final lap. If only, thinks Kyle Felvers, Chris Shepherd had backed off and then that final lap never would have happened.
Yeah, well, that is... I'm glad you covered the end of that one, because I literally had my head in my hands at one point. We're going to have to go to a very quick advert as all the rest of the drivers come across the line, Reesbell, and I think John Jones is the last driver to come in. But we have to digest all that, Andy, a little bit. We have to sort of take on board what we've just seen, get the podium sitters into the interview as well. This is going to be a hell of an interview process. Let's go straight after this advert.
Right then, let's try and dissect what just happened at the end of a very dramatic 7th round of the Agon by AOC Cayman Cup here at Hockenheim. It was a maiden race victory for Chris Shepherd. There was all sorts of dramatic stuff happening to championship contenders behind him. We'll get to that in a moment. First of all, though, let's chat to our latest race winner. Chris Shepherd joins us here in the commentary box. Chris, well done. Mega performance. What a way to get your first win.
Yeah, that was tough. That was really tough. Brendan's just super quick, isn't he? As soon as he got into that, I wouldn't say slipstream because there wasn't really much of a slipstream, to be fair to him. He was just quick. But as soon as he got within that half a second, he just kept me thinking and just kept half of my brain in the defensive kind of mode. And we all know that just slows you down slightly. So yeah, it was a tough race, but happy to come away with a win.
It was a brilliant battle between the two of you. When Jordan really started to apply the pressure there in the final 5 minutes, I think many people might have expected you to crack under the pressure, but absolutely not. You placed the car absolutely perfectly, fended off the challenges. I mean, was there any point there where you thought it might slip through your fingers?
Well, to be fair, I think he was like 8-9 tenths behind, and I made a mistake on the exit of on the apex of turn 1, which allowed him to close in considerably, and then that's where the onslaught started. But yeah, I think he may have made an error somewhere, and it gave me a 6-7 tenths back again, which was then I put my qualifying head on and just pushed. And to be fair, I crossed the line with about half a second to spare, and I could have backed off to end the race there and then, but I saw I was on a great lap, so I carried it on and made the race a lap longer.
Much to the dismay of some drivers behind you, I'm sure you'll find afterwards. But
you've made a lot of drivers angry with that statement just then.
Yes, there was plenty going on that final lap. Chris, huge congratulations. We're all so happy to see you getting that first race victory. Best of luck for race 2.
Cheers, buddy.
So, Chris Shepherd with the victory. Jack, let's speak to the man who chased him home.
Yeah, Jordan, very quickly, we just heard, obviously, Chris's recollection of that race. How was it from your perspective?
It was a good race. At the start, I'd seen what happened with Nicky and Eric, and I just thought, there's no point battling. There's no point battling with Chris here. We just need to get on with it. So I just sat behind him, looked after my tyres, and then towards the end, I just started pushing. And then as soon as I started battling, I just cooked the tyres, and that was it. It was gone. I was just making mistakes everywhere after that.
Well, you did take advantage of some of your championship rivals, we can call them now, maybe falling a little bit further back. Are you starting to think you're in with a chance now?
I mean, I'm happy with the prize for third, so I'd happily stay there. So yeah, I mean, wherever I finish, I'm happy with. But ideally, everyone wants to win something, so I'll keep pushing and go for the win. But chances are, I probably won't make it that far. I don't think, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, as he said, the third place prize is pretty mega as well, so if you do finish there, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Thank you very much, Jordan. We'll see how you get on in race number 2.
Cheers, thank you.
Yeah, third place prize, a trip to a TCR UK round. Get to come and have a cup of coffee with me and Paul O'Neill. What more could you want? Right, let's talk to our third place finisher, shall we? Nicky Taylor. Nicky, was entertaining.
I'm not going to keep this third, I can tell you that for a fact. I hold my hands up. That was my fault on Eric. I lag spiked a bit, but I just outbraked myself and hit him, and then tried waiting and realised by the time I ended up waiting, Eric was going to be a lot further back than me. So I hold my hands up. I don't think I'm going to keep this. I think I'll get about 8th because of the penalty that I'll get. But at the end of the day, racing was good. I need to learn how to brake behind cars around here because the toe is worth so much that the brakes just, I think, cook themselves. But yeah, pace wasn't great in that race, but happy with third, and don't even know what the hell happened between Kyle and Joel in front of me.
I would love to sit and chat to you for a bit longer about that, but I know you've got less than a minute before the race starts, so we'll let you go. Nicky, entertaining stuff, and best of luck in race 2.
Cheers. I'll try and keep this one a bit more clean. Sorry to Eric as well, but yeah, cheers, guys.
Excellent stuff. Okay, Nicky Taylor then, third place finish, and fair play to him there. You know, one of the younger drivers on the grid, Jack, held his hands up, took the responsibility. That's a nice and all too rare thing to see.
Yeah, I was going to say I had my list of driver excuses ready to add one to the list, but he didn't give us one, did he? He's held his hands up, and the VRRC drivers and organisers, will appreciate that as well. That he's obviously happy to have a chat about what happened. So yeah, nice to see that sort of thing. Hopefully, race 2, as he said, is a little bit cleaner.
Yes, I second that. Right then, reversed grid now. So on pole position, we've got Jones with Reese Bell alongside him. Dave Buki on row 2 alongside Paul Laramie, then Andy Carroll and Mick Sutton, Ethan Dalton-Ayres and Nathan Blank with Luke Weston and Scott Bugner to round out the top 10. Race 1 winner starts all the way down in 18th place. Let's get the 8th round of the championship underway. Lights out, away they go for 20 minutes once again around the Hockenheim Grand Prix circuit. Jones holds on to the lead, Bell second, 3 wide for third. That was never going to end well, and it's Andy Carroll that swipes across to the side of Paul Laramie's car, and Laramie said spinning into the barriers, unfortunately. Dave Buki came out of that well with third position, whilst further back we've got people like Carl Felvis already making progress.
Yeah, and they'll have to make progress. Well, they'll just have to hold off making progress, actually, because the safety car has come out just to calm a few things down, I imagine, and obviously try and give 1 or 2 cars the opportunity to get round and catch up to the back of people as well. So, yeah, I suppose we can have a look at who was the big gainers there. Eric Axelson's into the top 9, but that is about where he did start around the mid-pack, didn't he? So I'm sure he won't be disappointed nor delighted with that fact. Carl Felvis, though, has got up ahead of Eric Axelson, so that's a really good start from him. Obviously, though, he did start, again, a little bit closer to the mid-pack, thanks to the fact that he finished 6th in race number 1. Where are our protagonists from race 2 as well? Joel Lask, done again. He, again, unfortunately, had a little bit of a coming together at the end of race 1, means that he's had a solid start in 10th place. Jack Smith's done well. Chris Shepherd in 13th, ahead of Jordan Brennan, crucially.
Yes, he is. You're absolutely right. In the lead of the race, John Jones, who I believe is making his first start, certainly in the championship, held on to the lead well there. 54 years old, apparently, is John Jones. Started racing in Porsche 924s a couple of years ago. And, yeah, is used to drive Challenger main battle tanks. He says, hence my driving style, which will not be what Reese Bell or Dave Buki want to hear right now, but tells me that John might be a tough man to overtake.
Yeah, to be fair, actually, John's a regular at VRRC. I was actually quite surprised that he wasn't on the grid this time around. He's been in pretty much everything else, the Super Tourings, the MX-5s, everything that we've been doing recently. But yeah, nice to see him jump back on. Don't know if it's a guest round or whether because he had a spare week or something like that, or whether he's sort of working up to do the rest of the championship. But it's nice to have him back. He has started a couple of reverse grid poles before in different series. But seeing as this is the first time in the car, pretty much, I'm interested to see how this one goes. We're going green in about 20 seconds' time when they cross the line.
Yep, so now John Jones has mastered a standing start. Needs to make sure he gets this rolling start right with Reese Bell and Dave Buki right behind him. It's a very slow restart. Look at the chaos it's causing in the pad, but this is his prerogative. He can accelerate as late as he wants, and now he goes. Well, okay, that might have been a bit too late, but anyway, he's gone now. He's in the lead, and already there is shuffling happening behind. This is almost certainly going to cause further drama as they head down towards turn number 2. That's Kyle Felvis, the pink car, around the outside of Ethan Dalton-Ayres, the red machine, and now up to challenge the cars ahead. Very late on the brakes is Felvis, goes around the outside of, who was that? That was Mick Sutton, I think. Oh, and John Jones goes around from the race lead. Well, that was short-lived in the end. A spin at turn 2 and more carnage at turn 3.
Yeah, Joel Lask, he came, he saw, he conquered for a lap, and unfortunately then he caused chaos a little bit further behind for himself. Mick Sutton up to 7, Nicky Taylor's up to 5th place, Scott Bugner's ahead of Brennan, Shepherd's got ahead as well, Paul Laramie, Luke Weston's fallen behind. It's really impossible to tell you everything that's going on because look at the car park that's going into turn 3. That's absolute carnage as one of the drivers falls off. That Scott Bugner gets a little tap on the outside, ends up just about avoiding the tyre wall, means he comes back on at the rear end of the field. But this, just outside the top 7, is, as I said, causing chaos. Andy Carroll going for a big move on Dave Buki, and here comes the HFT boys. And it looks like Carl Felvis into 2nd place, Nicky Taylor in 4th, and then you got to wait for quite a while until you see any of the other championship protagonists. So these two drivers trying to claw back some points as Nicky Taylor gets into 3rd.
Yeah, goes to the inside line, moves ahead of the slightly wayward Andy Carroll, but then again runs wide there. We've seen so many HFT drivers doing that at that corner, and Taylor now has to work to try and keep Ethan Dalton-Ayres behind him, which he manages to, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, I keep doing that, Elliot Dalton-Ayres in the red and black car, which he does manage to do, so Taylor stays in 4th place. The battle you picked up on just before that was between Chris Shepherd and Jordan Brennan, and crucially, Shepherd is back ahead of Brennan as Felvers goes ahead of Dave Buki for the race lead. So Kyle Felvers gets himself into first position. Dave Buki will try and fight back here, or at least get back in that slipstream. Apparently drivers disagreeing a bit after race 1 as to how powerful that slipstream was, but Dave Buki's going to be hoping that it's fairly powerful. That might be his last chance to get back on terms with the race leader. There goes Axelson down the outside of Elliot Dalton-Ayres. There goes Taylor up the inside of Andy Carroll for 3rd place. It's all going on.
It is all going on. It's quite hard to keep a track of, isn't it, as well? We heard from Nicky Taylor after the first race saying, I don't think he'll hold on to 3rd place. His result from race 1, shall I say. But he is up to 3rd in this race now, so maybe it'll get a little bit better for him in this one. Because I don't think there's been any major contact involving him. Be interested to know what Carl Felvers's perspective was on race 1 as well. I'm sure we'll have a chat with him after this race, so long as he stays in the top 3, obviously. As Nicky Taylor, she gets a little bit wide, outbrakes himself and gets a tap for good measure as Andy Carroll fights back.
Yeah, that was Axelson, I think, that got into the back of him, and it almost sent Nicky Taylor around. Taylor is having a really tough time here getting this move made on Andy Carroll. He was ahead of him going into the hairpin, but then Carroll, quite rightly, tried to come back at him. I also noticed that Dave Buki is well and truly sticking in the wheel tracks of Kyle Felvers further up the road. Behind them, trying to document the progress that Chris Shepherd and Jordan Brennan are making. Well, it hadn't been a huge amount, but now Shepherd's up the inside of Jack Smith. They've got Mick Sutton being a bit of a cork in the bottle here just ahead of them, and this could cause all sorts of drama. On board with Chris Shepherd, he's got Smith ahead, he's got Brennan behind, 2 of the fastest drivers on the VRRC. He is in a really tough spot here, Shepherd.
Yeah, he is, but this is also sort of where you want to be, because you're around people who will carve through the field and deserve to be at the front end of the grid as well. So, Jack Smith could do the dirty work for the 2 behind them and getting past the likes of Mick Sutton, and then obviously Eric Axelson's very fast in himself, so they'll be hoping to catch up to them. They really do need to slightly work together, and you'd hope that they'd be mature enough to do such a thing. These 3 drivers, Jack Smith, Shepherd and Brennan, all a little bit older, all a little bit more experienced. I'm sure they'll probably do the right thing. However, this is racing, Andy, and we've seen plenty of people think about the right thing, and then it's all gone Pete Tong, as we almost saw just then, right on cue. Chris Shepherd outbreaking himself a touch and almost taking out Jack Smith.
Yeah, I thought he was going to hit him then, I'll be completely honest. He missed him by the narrowest of margins, thankfully no contact made. Right, we have had the change for 2nd place. Taylor ahead of Buki, but Dave Buki, as we've said before, is not one to settle for it when he gets overtaken. He always drives back through Taylor, going through the hairpin, but Nicky just about holds onto the car. 2nd lap in succession, I think, that Taylor's had contact at that part of track. Shepherd back up the inside of Jack Smith. Shepherd with the lighter car here, remember. He and Mick Sutton both on 10 kilos of ballast. That was a bit of a wobble. It can be difficult to spot your turning point into that corner sometimes when you're in a pack like this. And Shepherd clearly struggled. Mick Sutton struggles on the brakes, runs off the trap, but he's got the inside line for the next corner. Doesn't matter. Smith sweeps through on the outside line, and now Shepherd's the one in trouble. Yeah,
Shepherd's got Joel Lask crawling all over the backside of him, but Lask has got Brennan on the inside of him. So this is going to be a bit of a chess game, isn't it? But you're effectively just putting out fires left, right and centre as Shepherd runs wide and allows potentially Brennan to have a look up his inside going into the long-awaited left-hand apex. You do take a little bit of a wider line to get that later apex, to get a strong exit through the flat-out left-right. Shepherd has done that brilliantly. Brennan got a little bit held up. So all of a sudden, Mick Sutton is the next on the radar for Shepherd. But one thing is for sure, they've spaced themselves out just a touch, Andy, which might make it a little bit easier for everyone, even though they might have to take a lap to catch up.
I'm going to make a prediction that Mick Sutton's rear tyres are not going to last very well if he keeps driving like that. He was completely sideways through the final corner. Spectacular to watch, but will certainly have aggravated the rubber on the rear of his Porsche Cayman. It's all starting to stack up a little bit behind Buki in 3rd position. Buki getting all defensive here to keep Andy Carroll behind him. These 2 drivers have had plenty of battle in recent times here on the VRRC, and they're set for another one now with some quick drivers behind though. Eric Axelsson coming fast. You've got Jack Smith behind as well, and then of course even further back Shepherd and Brennan still languishing actually down in 9th and 10th position. Through the hairpin they go. Buki out wide. You can get away with that, though, can't you, the wide line at the hairpin? It gives you good momentum off the corner, and that's exactly what Shepherd's hoping for now, because he's run wide and almost allows Brennan up the inside. Shepherd, that was a bit naughty, moved over on Brennan. Brennan backed out of it. I don't think it would have spun Shepherd, but certainly Brennan backing out of it lessened the size of the contact between them, and in the end, Brennan goes through anyway, and they both get themselves past Sutton, who does not make the corner.
Yeah, Sutton just ended up falling off the circuit there of his own accord. Maybe having a look in his rearview mirrors a bit too long to see if any drivers were interested in trying to take his position. Maybe miss your braking zone and you look back forward, everything goes a bit wrong. So yeah, maybe a case of driving in your mirrors. That's what it looked like from our perspective anyway. Eric Axelsson really onto the back of Andy Carroll and Dave Bucke now. He probably won't get his first victory of the season, but he is still interested in taking a podium after obviously taking pole position earlier on. Didn't quite go his way in race number 1. We heard Nicky talking about that earlier on, but you never know. Bucke and Carroll, they might be interested in sort of working together, try and work with Axelsson to pull away from the rest of the field, or they might be really over aggressive and hold everybody up. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's been an interesting season for Axelsson because he's only finished out of the top 10 once. And in fact, he's only finished out of the top 6 twice, but only the one podium. And as you said, yet to get a race victory. That one podium came in the reverse grid race at Red Bull Ring. So Axelsson's been quick. We know that. He's the only driver to have 2 pole positions so far this season, after qualifying sessions anyway. But in the races, things just aren't quite panning out right for him. He's got a good chance for a podium here, though, as at the head of the field, they're side-by-side look, Felvers and Taylor is going through. Now, this is big for the championship as they come out of the hairpin. Nicky Taylor is now 11 points clear of Felvers in the championship. Kyle cannot afford to lose this race. I think team orders are well out the window now, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, we heard them in qualifying. Apparently, Felvers was on a quick lap and Nicky accidentally made a little bit of contact. Maybe, as you mentioned, team orders have somewhat gone out the window as they're going side by side. It's very entertaining racing, but everything's a little bit tense, aren't they? As that might just happen. And we thought that might end up a little bit worse off. You just hold your breath constantly as they both try and hold around the outside of various corners, and Nicky Taylor goes off the road. Now, I think if they weren't teammates, I would say fair play to Carl Felvers. That's a really good bit of moving, and you've got to hang him out to dry just a touch. He hasn't ruined his race, but equally secured the position for himself. As a teammate, as you mentioned, the last thing you want to do is see them fall out over this sort of race, because they have been 2 dominant drivers in this championship, and they've pulled up a really good team and they've worked well together in the past. You just hope that this doesn't break a relationship down, but it is very exciting to watch.
Oh, absolutely. I'm loving it. Elliot Daltonaires, by the way, ahead of Andy Carroll, who's slipping backwards. You can see Jack Smith going through as well. I was sort of mentioning this back at the start of the season when Felvers and Taylor were very much towing the party line and saying, no, we're going to work together. We're not going to race each other. That's all well and good at the start of the season. But when you get halfway through and one driver has a points advantage that the other needs to try and catch up to, suddenly you're not quite so keen to just work with your teammates, are you? They've changed positions again now. Taylor back ahead of Kyle Felvers. We understandably don't want to drag our eyes away from this battle that's going on behind, but once again, we need about 3 different shots here, don't we? Because we've got the fight for the lead, we've got everything else happening behind. Felvers coming back up the inside of Nicky Taylor into the hairpin. He goes back through on the inside line, parks it on the exit. Nice move there from Kyle Felvers. Can they keep this up, though, for another 7.25 minutes without it going wrong?
Well, that's the big question, and realistically, I think the drivers in 3rd, 4th and 5th should be watching this on their timing towers and probably thinking, we can catch up here, because here goes Nicky Taylor on Carl Felvers yet again, and there will be bleeding times. They've already lost 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths and counting, just going through those 2 corners, and Axelsson now ahead of, I'm not sure who it was actually he got ahead of, but he's just behind Dave Bucke, and you know, Axelsson, pole sitter, very quick. Will be very interested in seeing how this one ahead of them, settles themselves down.
So Taylor in front now needs to try and pull away if he can. I'm not convinced he'll be able to, though. These two have been very evenly matched all season long. I know Felvers is struggling still with this thumb injury that he sustained just before last week's racing. But then again, Nicky Taylor's getting over COVID as well, so neither of them exactly in peak fitness right now. What's going on behind? Dave Bucke 3rd, Axelsson. It was Andy Carroll, I think, that you spotted dropping down the order. He's down to 9th place now. was 4 a lap and a half or so ago, so he's fallen right to the back of this train. And there you can see Brennan and Chris Shepherd just ahead of him. Brennan with a good run on Elliot Dalton-Ayres there as they head towards turn number 2. Dalton-Ayres to the inside, Brennan to the outside line. He's going to be later on the brakes. Can he go right round the outside? This is the Axelsen move from the earlier race, and I think it might just work. Dalton-Ayres is going to squeeze him though, and he might get turned for squeezing him. That was never going to work. He ends up on the grass, and quite frankly, you could see that coming a mile away. Brennan goes through, and Shepherd now will run on him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Dalton-Ayres will probably say, well, he's touched me, he's forced me wide, but realistically, if you're squeezing that tight, you need to leave racing room for the other driver. There is a car there. He's not just going to hit the brakes when he's going onto one of the biggest straights on the circuit. Oh, there's a little bit of a coming together at the head of them as well. That was between Smith, Axelsen, and Buki. I think Buki, again, holding a few drivers up here, and he'll be holding up a massive train if he's not careful, and they'll be very, very keen to get past them. Axelsen needs to do something about this. When he first came into VRRC, we could see that he was a very, very quick driver as he gets a little bit loose after contact. He was a very quick driver, but his racecraft was always a little bit lacking. In the past 2 championships, the TCT and the MX-5s, he got that racecraft. He was a lot sharper when it came to actually racing and getting through drivers. And it seems in the Cayman, he can't quite get it back. He seems to have a little bit of a form dip in terms of racecraft. Albeit that race 1 was nothing to do with his fault. He actually did perfectly well. But he needs to get past Buki here, because otherwise he's going to be in the clutches of Smith and Brennan. And we know how ruthless those two can be.
Yeah, Buki's definitely holding this one up, but fair play to him. He's defending well, isn't he? It's like the Trilly train all over again, the Buki bottleneck maybe. He's keeping this group at bay somehow, and they keep tripping over each other, so they're not really able to fully concentrate on attacking him. Axelsen gets a challenge there into turn 1. Then he gets a wobble coming out of the corner and immediately has to go defensive look, because Jack Smith is there to challenge him on the outside line. Buki is just driving around the inside of the track. He's not overrunning the corners, crucially. That's what's causing the stack up, but he's doing absolutely nothing wrong. It's brilliant defensive driving, this, from the Kinetic Motorsport powered by Liquimolly driver, and he's hanging on to 3rd place inside the final 4 minutes. Now, Axelsen 4th, Smith in 5th, but for how much longer? Brennan alongside him, the 2 heaviest cars on the grid. Brennan to the outside line, and Chris Shepherd with a double slipstream wants to try and get past the pair of them if he can. Brennan has cleared Jack Smith, and now Shepherd tries to do the same thing. Right round the outside, he might get both of them because they're so slow at the apex. He's going to have better traction off the corner with his lighter car. He won't get Brennan, but after a bit of paint traded there with Jack Smith, I think he'll go 6th.
Yeah, this is a bit touch and go, isn't it? You don't want to see it end in tears. As it is, it's brilliant racing as he looks a big move up the inside of Jordan Brennan, which doesn't quite come off, but it does allow Jack Smith to have another little nibble. Smith will be on the outside for the next 2 corners, though, of Carroll. Remember, Carroll does have that lighter car, that better traction, as Andy mentioned before, so this is going to be very interesting. The big overtaking opportunity is into the next corner now, into the next braking zone. Shepherd keeps over to the left-hand side. Smith makes it very clearly, makes it very clear early on that he's not going to go for the move on the inside. He's going to try and sweep that late apex and get a clean power down. The gap between Brennan and Axelsen, Brennan and Shepherd, is starting to increase, but only just. And as soon, no, that's Paul Laramie falling down the order. As soon as Axelsen and Brennan start fighting it out, we could see again it all bunch back up.
Yeah, Laramie's just fast-tracked to the pits, I think, which is what's confusing things. That was close. Smith on the outside of Shepherd, and Shepherd's getting a bit frustrated here because he wants to be tagging along with Brennan, as he's done all day long. Jordan Brennan putting in a really good performance here with all of that ballast. 5th place at the moment is Jordan, having finished 2nd in the earlier race, but of course he's losing points again now to Taylor and Felvers, who have separated slightly at the front of the field in Taylor's favour. So against all the odds, it's looking like being a good night this for Nicky Taylor. Right, 3rd place, Axelsen running out of opportunities now. He'll have 1 more lap left at the end of this one, so about a lap and a half left to find a way past Dave Buki. But now the added complication is that Buki's Kinetic Motorsport teammate is right behind him. Buki overruns the corner, elbows Axelsen wide. And Shepherd spins. Chris Shepherd spins in the background. Elliot Dalton-Ayres gets into him. That's such a shame for the race 1 winner. Jack Smith delayed in all of that as well. But what's going on up the road? Has Buki retained 3rd place? Yes, he has. Brennan 4th, but for how much longer? Axelsen tries to come back at him on the inside line, and I reckon Brennan will just hang on to that place. Somehow, though, it's still Buki 3rd.
Yeah, now he's got the headache, hasn't he? Does Buki give up the place and allow
not a chance. Not a chance.
Allow Brennan to get the more points to try and claw back, or does he keep his podium? I want to see him keep his podium, like you said there, Andy. I think Buki fully well deserves it. He's held on to this for as long as humanly possible. If he makes a mistake and Brennan gets through, then fair play. But Buki deserves a podium, in my opinion.
And Buki will believe that he deserves a podium as well. I'm pretty sure he is not going to roll over for anyone, even if it's his teammate, and even if that's the right thing to do for the championship, because Jordan Brennan could do with this third place, couldn't he? That would really limit the damage being done by Taylor and Felvis up the road. But yeah, I'm not convinced that we'll see that position change hands voluntarily, at least, on this final lap. It will have to be either a mistake, as you say, or a bold move by Brennan. He's got his headlights on. He's forcing Buki to defend. I think that sort of answers your question definitively, doesn't it? Buki defending the position into 2. Brennan's late on the brakes. Buki tries to roll off the brakes, tries to get on the power. There's contact between the teammates, and Axelsen could get them both.
Oh, he's not going to, though, because he's been nudged off after the... Well, I mean, that's twice I think Axelsen really sort of went a bit too narrow. He did it on Buki. That's what allowed Brennan through in the first place. He's just done it again there. And as Brennan looks to the outside, we saw Dave Buki braking a lot earlier than him into turn 2. What about to turn 4? Has he learnt his lesson as Buki just about stops it on the apex? And I think he's timed that to perfection, Andy. I thought he was going to force Brennan all the way around the outside. Brennan obviously went for that cutback with all his experience. But Buki hammered on the anchors, stopped on the apex. Very well done.
That was the best overtaking opportunity on the lap, but it's not over. Oh, contact! A big punt there from Brennan, who was just so much later on the brakes than Buki. I wonder if maybe Brennan might now decide that discretion's the better part of valor. He knows he's way quicker than Buki, but Dave has managed to heroically, in my opinion, on to this third place, having fended off some of the quickest drivers on the grid. He just needs to get through the last few corners without mistakes, but he's running wide into every turn now. He's almost certainly cooked his tyres. His brakes won't be up much better, and he's probably sweating as well in his sim as he's worked so hard here to manage this third place battle. At the head of the field, it's another HFT Racing 1-2. Quite a bit to talk about after that one, but it's Taylor that gets the win with Felvis in second place, and it's 2 teammates coming up next as well. The Kinetic Motorsport, powered by Liquid Wally cars, of Dave Buki and Jordan Brennan third and fourth. It's Buki on the podium, and that is, says, checking his notes, his first podium finish of the season. Brilliant result that for Buki, his previous best finish, a 9th place. That's a big improvement and a well-deserved third place.
Yeah, brilliant by him, but a really good race all round, I have to say as well. Joel Lask, one of the drivers from race 1, we were really impressed with, coming home in 9th. Mick Sutton, Andy Carroll as well, solidly in the top 10. A couple of drivers that we didn't expect to have DNFs, Chris Shepherd and Ethan Hill, unfortunately, in 17th and 18th place. Again, those drivers have been really impressing us over the past couple of weeks, and obviously Chris Shepherd in race number 1. That is a little bit gutting. We'd never like to see it, but that is part of racing. As I said, there's always the stewards' inquiry afterwards to settle all debates, so we won't go around guessing about what's happening or what did happen before we hear all that sort of news. So, yeah, great race. Dave Buki, I think probably, Andy, I think decided in our little chat on Discord, probably driver of the round for this evening as well, mainly because of that quite brilliant defensive driving race too.
I don't know how he did it. I really don't know how he did it. So I think that sort of says it all, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm absolutely happy with that to give him driver of the day. And is this that's Jordan Brennan celebrating spectacularly in front of him. Yeah, fantastic drive that from Dave Buki to come home in third place. He was nearly 10 seconds off the race lead, but that won't bother him too much, I don't think. The race was won, though, by Nicky Taylor, and for Nicky, that's a 3rd race victory of the season. But Nicky, who joins us now in the box, that was your first win since the double that you did at Road Atlanta at the start of the season. That was needed, wasn't it?
Yeah, a bit long time. Long time coming, but yeah, a lot better result after the first race. I was a bit sketchy with Kyle at the first part of that lap, first part of the race, sorry, but yeah, I trust Kyle, and Kyle, I think, trusts me, so yeah, it's all good. And yeah, then just got in the lead and then tried to do quali lap after quali lap. My last lap was ridiculously sketchy, but yeah, no, very happy with it.
I can see your supporters, your and Kyle's supporters on the YouTube chat. I think they were having kittens at moments in that race. To be fair, so were we watching it, because you and Kyle put on quite the show there through the middle part of the race. Obviously, you've worked together so effectively all season long, but are we getting now to that crunch time in the championship where you just can't give positions to each other because it is so close in the points?
I mean, we'll still work together. I think we'll still work together through Spa as well. But when it comes to Mugello, last race, last lap, if we're both next to each other, then I don't think an inch of room is going to be given to the other car. So we'll see how that goes. But and I think Carl will say the exact same as what I've just said. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was a good round. The first result may be taken away from, or most likely will be taken away from me because of the contact with Eric. But the second race, I don't think you can take that away. I think I did quite well there.
Oh, absolutely. From deep in the field, coming through to win in the reverse grid race, that's never easy to do. You said we're heading to Spa next. Very different kind of racetrack. One you enjoy?
To be fair, no. But I never know. I've never done it in anything other than an F1 car, so we'll see how it goes. And yeah, it's going to be a long lap, probably about like 2 minutes 40, if not 3 minute laps. So be a short lap wise race, but obviously it's going to be a lot of intense concentration throughout the whole race, and normally long circuits and intense concentration suit me well, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I just got consistently points finishes and consistent top 5 finishes now for the last 2 rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom O'Farrell, who runs our productions, is accusing you of always saying that you don't like a racetrack. Is this your sort of way of manifesting some good fortune for the week ahead?
I always say I don't like it, so then if it comes into the race and I do well, then it's a bonus. Like I kind of try to psych myself up, but yeah, I don't mind Spa. Spa's not a track that I so much as hate, so yeah, we should be good around there.
Excellent stuff. Yes, well done on the win there. A third victory of the season means you've won more races than anyone else as well so far. So it's going pretty well for Nicky Taylor. Nicky, we'll speak to you next week.
Cool, cheers.
Nicky Taylor gets the race win. Second place, though, that went the way of his teammate Carl Felvers, and he can tell us all about it as he chats to Jack.
Yeah, Carl, congratulations on the second place, although I feel like we need about 20 minutes to get through everything that's happened to you this evening. Let's start very quickly with qualifying, because it didn't quite go your way, did it?
No, it didn't. You're right. I had one put together lap, but Nicky accidentally clipped my rear end, and then I couldn't get a good lap from there.
Right, well, you seem to have rescued it in race 1, obviously, but then the last lap, there was an incident with Joel Lask. What was your perspective on that one?
We'll just wait for the stewards, because I've got different opinions to other people, and I'm sure Joel has other opinions as well, so we'll just wait to see what the stewards say.
Very professionally done. Got it. Race number 2 then. They're a little bit more exciting, obviously fighting for the top positions that you and Nicky are used to fighting for. The mid you obviously got an earlier advantage, but then that mid-race is starting to get a little bit heated up again, didn't it? With you and Nicky, we were sort of talking in the commentary box, wondering about which way it was going to go, and whether there was going to be any tactics or anything like that. Was it just 2 people trying to have a really good race between you?
I mean, yeah, it was a brilliant race, but I think I don't think Nicky really needed that win. He might like to have the win, but if we want to get P1 and P2 in the championship, I sort of needed that to boost my points up because of the lower finish in race 1. But yeah, it was a cracking battle, nevertheless.
It was a cracking battle, and I know your dad was in the YouTube chat, so as Andy said to Nicky before, sort of wondering what on earth you two were doing. But luckily, it all came off, sort of thing. You were all good. Last thing, similar question to what Andy asked to Nicky just before. Just wanted to make sure of you all on the same page still. Going into the last 2 rounds, what's the plan? Gloves are off. There's a 15-point gap between you and Nicky now in the championship. Is it a gloves off sort of perspective, or are you still sort of working towards that 1-2 final objective?
I mean, we want the 1-2, but Nicky knows that I don't want P1 prize. I want the P2 prize because I'm on a desk setup, so I could really do with the rig. So, yeah, we're just trying to keep P1 and P2 basically.
Well, fair enough, can't argue much with that. They're all brilliant prizes, whether it's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th or 5th. So, yeah, fair play. Congratulations on the 2nd place here at the Hockenheim ring then, Carl, and we might be speaking to you next week.
Let's hope so.
I really enjoyed that. Right, let's speak to our 3rd place finisher then. And that third place finisher is Dave Buki. Dave, I'll be honest, there were times in that race that I didn't think you were going to finish third, but that was the defensive drive of the season. Well done.
Thanks. I didn't think I was going to finish third, to be honest, neither. Yeah, it was good fun, that.
Yeah, I guess that you're a little bit worn out after that. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do to defend from one quick driver around a circuit like this, but you had a queue of about 6 or 7 of them behind you at one point. Clearly worked out the bits of the track where you had to defend, and what I noticed is you were defending, but then not overrunning the corners, at least not until the very end. So, yeah, that's why I say that was a really good defensive drive. It's one thing to drive defensively, but to not mess up corner exit takes some doing.
Yeah, I think obviously experience from real life racing definitely helps. You know, it's one thing jumping on a sim and being quick, but it's another thing having that real life experience around you to know where to position your car. And I mean, I've done karting since I've been 5 years old, so it certainly helps, you know. And even in the Civic Cup, which I do now, it's bumper to bumper racing, and it's like you've got to defend. So I knew the guys behind me were quicker. But I wasn't just going to give it to them. You know, I wanted to defend because I knew that I had the potential to finish P3, which I did. So, yeah, I think I probably had about 18 minutes of defensive driving then. And obviously, as you know, when you're defending, you can't take the normal racing lines that you want to take, and it compromises your exit. So it is a hard thing to do, but I think I did all right then.
Yeah, we think you did all right as well, which is why why myself and Jack have agreed that you are the very worthy recipient of our Driver of the Round award. So a PowerMax Valeting kit is on its way to you simply for that defensive drive in race 2. Both me and Jack know that that's not an easy thing to do. So congratulations. And yeah, you were in the end the only choice, really.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Good stuff. Right then, congratulations to Dave Buki and all of our podium finishers, and we look forward to catching up with them in a week's time. Right then, this is what that means for the championship standings. Nicky Taylor with the championship lead, 15 points ahead of Kyle Felvis, and Felvis is then 15 points ahead of Jordan Brennan, which does my OCD the world of good. So those three looking very equally spaced out. However, Jack, it sounds like from both Nicky Taylor and Kyle Felvis and what they were saying there, those points could change before we arrive at Spa in a week's time. And if they do, Brennan could be the big beneficiary.
Yeah, exactly. Nicky putting his hands up in race 1, saying that's pretty much my fault, which pretty much means we know that the points aren't going to stay the same. Kyle saying there was maybe a clash of perspectives on his incident in race 1 with Joel Lask as well. So it'll all come down to the stewards, just like Kyle said. Quite rightly said as well. And like you mentioned, Jordan Brennan, as far as I'm aware, we didn't see any big major incidents involving Jordan. However, there were lots of tiny incidents around the area that Jordan was involved in race 2, but nothing I think that would really cause too much of a problem or the stewards a headache. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how this goes. I think Ethan Hill hasn't had the best round, has he? He unfortunately got that DNF in race 2, which means Eric Axelsson, even though he got pole position but nothing else really went quite right for him, he does get ahead of Ethan Hill back up to 4th place. So, yeah, plenty still on offer going into the final 2 rounds.
Indeed, there is. And those final 2 rounds will be heading to Spa in a week's time, as we've said, and Mugello the week after. So 2 very scenic and driver-friendly circuits. I think it's fair to say that Spa is the easier of those 2 to make an overtake at, but I think we'll still see some really good racing at Mugello. It's going to be a tense final round, isn't it? I reckon it's almost certainly going to go all the way down to the wire. And yeah, don't miss any of the racing coming up over the next 2 weeks. And also do head over to the VRRC website and social media pages to keep up to date with championship standings and any further developments during the week. Heading over to the VRRC website is a good thing to do, isn't it, Jack? Not just to keep in touch with what's happening in this series, but perhaps to get involved in some racing of your own.
Yeah, and by the time that we finish this series, I'm going to have this down to a tight 60 seconds, but we'll give it a go this time. Forza Horizon 5, plenty on offer. Plenty of drivers still active in the community in that as well, over on the VRRC Discord. Club cruises, events, just generally chatting about what mods you're sticking on your car and doing the seasons as well, which I think we're up to spring this time around in Forza. If you're interested in any of the Assetto Corsa, it's a little bit more serious and realistic sim racing. Then, of course, we have the championships like you've seen today, and also more coming up. We have the time attacks that change every month, and the fun races as the Praga Fun Cup at the moment, every Saturday evening. Be sure to catch all the action. It's not live streamed, but you can catch the results, on the social media pages on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that thing for VRRC. And if you want to get involved, that's a fantastic way of getting involved in any of the championship. Because as I said, it's a fun race. You don't have to be a member of VRRC, and it might give you a little bit of a taste of what it's like to run for the evening to run here on a Wednesday. If you're into Assetto Corsa Competizione, well, weekly endurance races also run here and are organised on VRRC. And, of course, Dirt Rally 2.0, last but not least, Monday to Sunday, weekly stages and rallycross. So that's a fantastic. Dave Marshall, massive on dirt. He's a very, very ridiculously quick driver on dirt rally, and he likes to set up all those sort of things for fun as well. So if you want to catch any of it or get any driver coaching tips or just tech support, then VRRC Discord is where you want to be. There's a link in the description below.
Nicely done. I meant to time that, but I think we are getting closer to 60 seconds. So
next week we'll time it.
I believe you. Right, that is it from the Hockenheim Grand Prix circuit. It's been quite the night of entertainment, it must be said. Things starting to get spicier as we head towards the final 2 rounds. Be sure to join us in a week's time when we'll be at the world-famous Spa-Francorchamps circuit in virtual Belgium for the penultimate night of racing in the Agon by AOC Cayman Cup. For now, though, from myself, Andy McEwen, Jack Oliphant alongside me in the comms box, and Tom O'Farrell doing a brilliant job as ever on the cameras, keeping us up to speed with what's happening on track. That's all we've got time for tonight. We'll see you again next week.
Woo!